And we're back talking about the Constitution line by line. I'm Don Frazier. I'm a professor of history here at McMurray University.
I'm Paul Fabrizio, professor of political science at McMurray University. Between us, we have, 50 years or so?
Yeah, I'm in my 27th year of teaching here, and then I did a year at TCU before that, and then some at a JUCO when I was in graduate school. Yeah, so I've been doing this for 30-plus years.
And I finished 23 years here, plus couple years at Darton College, in Albany, Georgia, and then at Emory University.
So, we've been doing this a while.
Yeah, a lot of experience here. Whoa!
All right, so we've been going through the Constitution.
Why did we do this?
Why do we do this?
Didn't we learn anything?
What would you say you do here? All right, so we're going through the Constitution line by line. We're in Article 1 still. We're in Section 9, and we're at the last clause. And the last clause is clause number 8 that has to do with titles of nobility and awards.
Yeah.
Which will have some interesting modern-day complications.
King George. Whatever happened to King George?
Yeah.
George Washington.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, so here's the actual line. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States. So that's what happened to King George.
Yeah.
And no person holding any office or profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, except of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever, from any king, prince, or foreign state.
Okay.
So if you are knighted,
right,
you have to get Congress's permission before you can be knighted.
Okay. If you're a government official,
okay,
can you be knighted? A U.S. government official, can you be knighted by another country?
Yeah, because it has to be a holder of an office.
Right. And so the answer is no.
Okay.
Okay?
Unless Congress says you can.
Unless Congress says you can. Congress has allowed military officers.
Eisenhower comes to mind, Order of Lenin.
Right. To receive foreign knighthoods, honors, whatever they want to.
In fact, I'm thinking
in the Gulf War, General Norman Schwarzkopf, I think Colin Powell.
A lot of World War II generals, too.
Yeah. I believe George H.W. Bush received an award from some country.
Probably Saudi Arabia, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think so. But again, after he left office. So, but I mean, really, there's two things working here. Number one, the United States will never give any of these honorific titles to you. Okay?
Well, and that was one of the big issues with what to call the president.
Right.
You know, do you call him Your Highness?
Right.
Which sounds a little too regal.
Yeah. Thank God they don't use that. Yeah,
so they called him His Excellency and Mr. Good old-fashioned Mr.
I like Mr.
I do, too. I think that's one of the coolest things about our country is we have the most powerful, arguably one of the most powerful people on earth.
And he's Mr.
And he's Mr.
Yeah. And when we have a woman, she'll be Madam.
Madam President.
Yeah. I don't know who decided that Madam, by the way.
Yeah, and when.
You know, she might say, I want to be Ms. or Mrs. or I don't know. We'll find out when that happens. So number one, under this, the United States government will never give any of these titles. So
Correct.
We'll never have a duke here. Number two, if you're a government official, you can't go to another country and get one of these titles.
Unless you have permission from Congress.
Unless you have permission from Congress. Now, that leads to the question about Meghan Markle.
Wait. Meghan Markle?
She has a title. She's a Duchess of Sussex.
Sussex.
A lot of S's. That's right. So she is just a common, ordinary citizen here in the United States.
Yes.
So she goes over and she marries who she wants, the Duke of Sussex.
Yeah.
And so she gets this regal title. She can have it.
Yeah,
doesn't require an act of Congress.
Yeah, because she's not a government official.
Yeah, she's not a government official, so it's not a big deal. And what's interesting is that her son that's born is an American citizen. He has dual citizenship.
Okay.
So he has royal blood, but he also conceivably at some point could be president of the United States.
He'd have to lose the title, I'll bet.
He would have to lose the title. And I don't know if they would require at the age of 21 he has to choose his citizenship, or if we require that. I don't know all that. But anyway, something to think about.
Interesting implications for the royal watchers out there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about things like
We're going to someplace fun.
we are going to someplace fun. Presents, emoluments. We've already kind of covered offices and titles,
Okay.
but it also says of any kind whatsoever.
Okay, so let's start with the presents.
Okay.
Okay. If you've been to a presidential library, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You go in there and there's
Here's a
the
statue of
most-
Churchill, given to you by the Queen of England.
Yeah, exactly. There's some of the most amazing gifts.
Yeah.
I just am amazed at what other countries have given to our leaders.
Correct.
Are they allowed to do that? You better believe they're allowed to do that. But
Are they allowed to keep them?
And the answer to that question is no.
They are not. It goes over to the General Services Administration.
Yeah, exactly. So they're kept by the government and they're put on display at these museums.
Well, that's appropriate.
And it drives every president crazy because every president has come across a gift that they really like.
Because isn't there a dollar limit to it, like $100 or something ridiculously low
No, that
they can keep?
that they can keep.
Yeah.
And naturally, you get cigars or something like that. Bill Clinton likes cigars.
So I've heard.
And so you get them and you go, I want to keep these. So in essence, what you do is you pay the government back for the value of that.
Sure, if it's over whatever the limit is.
Yeah, whatever the limit is. But some of the gifts they really want to keep, and it just drives them crazy. That
Like
they
a hippo
can't do.
hide shield from the...
Well, I'm thinking, I thought there was like a saddle that George W. Bush received from somebody that he really wanted.
yeah,
But, it's in his library at
over
SMU.
near SMU, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. It's like you are not in this job to get gifts.
Well, and he wouldn't have gotten that saddle more than likely had he not been in that
the
position. So there's the thinking behind it.
Right.
So-
and so, there's something I think it goes back to the Mr. as a title.
Sure.
The whole point is to keep them down, keep them grounded.
Keep them as citizens.
There you go.
The first citizen among citizens.
Right. Which then leads to the emoluments.
What is an emolument? Because it makes me think of lotion for some
I
reason.
don't know why it does that.
Maybe that's emulsifying.
Maybe that is, or something.
Something, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, emolument is simply money or credit that you would receive in return for your job. But it's not a paycheck. So there's an argument being made that President Trump today gets emoluments,
Because he's a real estate developer
and he owns these hotels.
in foreign countries.
No, here in the United States. Let's
Okay.
just use one hotel in particular.
Okay.
What used to be the old post office in Washington, D.C. It's
Okay.
not far from the White House. It's now the Trump International Hotel or whatever it is. And there has been a noticeable spike in visitors to that hotel from certain foreign countries. The president has never divorced himself from these companies.
Yeah.
So these people, for example, let's just use Saudi Arabia as an example, they're coming and staying at the hotel. That benefits the president.
And that's an emolument.
Exactly. So is the president violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution by continuing to get paychecks from the Trump organization or to have a controlling interest or whatever his relationship is with that? He could have divorced himself totally from that, and so there would be no financial interest at all, but it's a family-owned business.
Yeah.
And so he didn't do that.
He should have gone liquid with his part.
Yeah, but
Because he's an old dude, too. He's not going to live forever.
But that is, and I would imagine in his case it would be very true. It's incredibly difficult to do that. When you have the kind of money that he is supposed to have, billions of dollars, cutting those ties can be very, very difficult
Very
to do.
complicated.
And, it's a family thing, so if he cuts his ties, what does it do to his other members of his family?
Sure.
So He chose to continue to have a fiscal relationship with that organization, and as a consequence of that, even though he's not supposed to be involved in any decisions, as a consequence, he can benefit by foreign countries staying in his hotel.
At his branded hotel.
At his branded
This
hotel.
is different than having a Trump Tower in Moscow or a Trump Tower in Pyongyang.
Right, which would be an amazing.
That would be very odd.
In North Korea, go visit the North Korean Trump Hotel.
But that would be clearly an emolument.
Yeah, and especially if that were to come along while he is president. So this is totally not related to that. And what's going on is that other people who are affected, other hotel owners, have filed lawsuits against the president,
Citing the emoluments clause.
and saying that this is a violation of the Constitution. If there were to be an impeachment of President Trump, which I doubt there will be, conceivably one of the articles of impeachment would be the emoluments clause.
The violation of the emoluments clause. And yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Is the president benefiting personally from his job? And, you think about it and you go, every single president, from starting with Richard Nixon, I'm trying to think about ones before that, maybe even Dwight Eisenhower. They all, when they left office, gave speeches, wrote books,
Sure.
that they benefited by.
Well, doesn't this also
So-
apply to congressmen? This emoluments clause and all that stuff?
Yes,
Or
it does.
does that mean the fox
But-
is watching the hen house?
No, you're making a very good point. And in fact, Congress has all these ethics rules that
Yeah.
they have to abide by. It is much more difficult, using the case of like a hotel, for example,
Yeah.
for a member of Congress to benefit that directly. Okay? So
Just because they've got a
just
limited
because-
span of management.
Well, more correctly, because I think that's right. Because if you're a member of the Senate, you're one of 100. If you're a member of the House, you're one of 435. So why should somebody single you out in particular? But if you're Mitch McConnell, for example, and you own a winery
Yes.
in Kentucky, and all of a sudden the McConnell brand of wine is really, really popular with people that from another country that you're dealing with, I would suppose that would be a violation of the clause.
But I mean, do the emoluments have to come from a foreign country?
What is the wording of the Constitution? Is it only foreign country, or is it just?
All right,
is it prohibiting anything?
Of any kind, whatever, from any king, prince, or foreign state. So that's
Okay.
why.
Okay.
So just because you're Mitch McConnell and everybody in Kentucky now is interested in your
bourbon.
your bourbon, that's
So what?
it's good to be congressman.
Good to be congressman.
good to be
Yeah.
good to be in Congress and have
Yeah.
high profile.
Yeah.
Okay.
But will that affect anything from, is Saudi Arabia going to be specifically interested in yours? And will anybody even notice?
Yeah, correct.
So, but with the president, it's a different story.
Yeah, a little higher profile.
Yeah. And the reality is this is something that really has not been litigated much before because it hasn't really been an issue. Donald Trump, because of his real estate holdings, is in a unique place among our presidents, by far the wealthiest we've ever had in that job. And so there's consequences that we're really just discovering in this thing.
Yeah, it'd been interesting if there had been President Clinton II.
Hillary Clinton, what about hers?
Well, yeah,
and
what about her
relationship?
emoluments?
Yeah, what about hers? I think about Mitt Romney. He
yeah.
was a very, very wealthy man with investments, that sort of thing. So what would there been possibilities there? So, but we don't know because neither Hillary Clinton or
That's
Mitt
ahistorical.
Romney won.
Yeah, that's ahistorical. Okay, so that's our line.
Yeah,
So nobility to emoluments. It's a lot.
it's a lot.
All right, so this actually concludes Article 1, Section 9.
But there's one more section of the Constitution.
Holy smoke, there
one
is.
more section of this article in the Constitution.
That's right, and we'll start that in the next episode. Thanks.